Homelessness. I am Cy Hansen. As always, I'm joined by the Housing and Homeless Services Director at Ally Supportive Services, the Twin Cities Ambassador for the Homeless, and my twin sister, Miss Amber Hansen. How you doing?
I'm well
And
today,
by the
Sai. How are
hold
you?
on, hold on.
What?
I'm great, but for you and everything you do, thank you. I'm doing fine. So this week we want to start now that we've kind of laid the foundation for our show, what it's about. Everybody knows what our mission is here. We want to include a new segment, a salute to service segment. For various reasons, we in our family are huge supporters of our all of our service men and women, our members, whether it's our military, whether it's the police department, first responders, firefighters, everyone who keeps this country safe and running and alive. We salute all of you. So we're gonna start off every show with a salute to service segment, and this week it is Dakota County Sheriff's Deputy Officer Luther Klug, who on Monday, July 15th, 1996, who he was on his way home and he responded to a Hastings Police Department call to assist them in an ordeal. And after he assisted them on his way home, he was then hit by a drunk driver and killed. His end of watch was July 15th, 1996. And now County Highway 8, State Highway 68 is now off is Sheriff's Deputy Luther Klug Memorial Highway. So, Deputy Klug, your family, we salute you. Thank you for your service, and we're gonna do that every week. And thank you for your service. It's you know, it, like you want to talk about. You have a relationship with you. What is it called? PHOP with the police department, and
Yeah.
as I support the Colorado, yeah, it's world would be chaos without our officers, and we need to show them some respect, I believe. And if you want to tell us a little more about PHOP, Police Homeless Outreach Program.
Yeah. Um, the first off, the just again another salute to our Dakota County Sheriff's Department and all of our Dakota County police agencies. There's obviously been a lot going on in the last month or so with some loss of life
Right,
during the line of
right,
service.
yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I'm fearful of that all the time of my fellow colleagues. And that will lead me into my fellow colleagues. Um, I, even though I am social services homeless to read outreach, we have a partnership. Um, I use the acronym PHOP, Police Homeless Outreach Partnership.
partnership.
Yep. And uh, when Ally first contracted to do the work in Dakota County, I had known about the PHOP idea um, from working in social services and homeless services, and I loved it. And then as I began to do the work, it just made sense. Like the other outreach folks doing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, are literally police officers.
Right,
And they act very much like social workers on a front line type of, they're not trained to do all this social work follow up historically um, and they're not social workers, but they are the front line. They're responding to homeless calls, which often are trespassing, petty theft, stuff like that. Homeless related crimes is what I call it. And so it just made sense with the goal of like resolving homelessness that we partner because I'm the follow up, me and my team, and then we are the access to housing and housing resolution and access to the mental health services, chemical health services. Not that they aren't, but that's not their job. Their job is to protect and serve, and I would say kind of hand off to us. They
Yeah.
don't have the capacity. They do not. And they didn't 10 years ago and they don't now. They do not have the capacity to do their job and then continue to follow up at the capacity necessary, unless it's a designated position, to make sure people are following up on housing goals and phone calls and meetings and mental health appointments, medical appointments. So that's where I just really fell in love with the partnership, because if we work together, you're seeing a homeless person that I may not see at 1 in the morning. Shoot me an email, shoot me a voicemail, call me. If I'm up, I might answer for the police, but nowadays I'm not. But I told them I would, and I did. And so we're going to connect people to services, that I may not typically meet.
Mhm. So is
So,
that how the partnership works? Is that instead of the police taking them to jail or doing something,
yep,
charging them with something, they call you instead, basically, like, hey, we have a situation here, we know you can help, instead of putting this person in a worse situation, they hand them off
right.
to you. Am I getting that kind of right?
That is part of it, and it's um, uh, multifaceted, because um, we are not only serving the person, but then there's also when we jail people for kind of petty crimes, it
Yeah,
costs everybody a lot of money, right?
yeah,
And then are we really helping the person? No, they're going to go in and they're going to go out. We're spending a lot of
right,
time
yeah,
doing circles. Um, but I really sold it as um, the goal, and actions will speak louder than words. Is the goal is you want less crime in your area,
hmm,
and there's petty crimes, and I call a lot of homeless related crime type of stuff petty theft, trespassing, loitering, um, uh,
loitering,
yeah, parking where you're not supposed to be. There's all these
yeah,
things that people get tickets for. You have to go to court. Um,
yeah, and you have to
they're homeless.
get us something in the mail to go to court, like,
People don't go, so then they have
right,
warrants, and then they
right,
pick. Oh, it's just a revolving door. So if we can partner, and they'll be like, oh, this person's homeless, they give me a call. I look it up in my system too and be like, they have a housing referral.
right,
They just nobody can find them. Perfect. Let me find them, set up a day and time. If their phone doesn't work, it's like an officer can be, that mediator, like be here at this
yeah,
time.
kind of,
Um,
yeah, that's cool,
so then, okay, if we get that person housed, the crime rate will reduce. The calls for service for that person will reduce. So the police can go do other things, because if
right,
we're working on housing for this person and we're successful in that, then they can go do other things. If they're responding to calls on one particular homeless individual, or three or five or 10, then they're spending time doing that they could be doing other things. So by them working with us closely in resolving homelessness, then we're reducing calls for service and time spent on what
hmm.
I I, I term homeless related crimes.
Well, and that's probably why the homeless, you get the bad rap for the those petty theft, whether it's just like, yeah, I'm
It's
starving,
survival.
I'm trying to grab a bag of chips or whatever it is, something
That
stupid,
happens.
candy bar, like, come on,
It it
you
happens.
know,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't want to. I don't want to get into what else. Sometimes if people would help a little bit, these people wouldn't have to do that. I don't mean these people, but like our fellow Earthlings wouldn't have to resort to things like this. And
Mhm.
which was gonna get to something that I want to talk about later, which is prevention. But I want to say it takes, first of all, a special kind of person to one do what you do, and also like I believe that it should take a special person to be an officer, whether it's a sheriff deputy like Luther Klug, or somebody that it takes something special to care that much to go that extra mile to look out for people. Like that says volumes to those officers that do that. And you know hands off to you guys, man. It's
Yes.
you know so but again, so in these months, does the population uptick in Dakota County as far as homelessness is with the warmer weather? Do you notice more kind of others coming in, kind of people floating into this kind of area? Is that kind of I mean, because like we've talked about with wooded areas and kind of that whole kind of lifestyle, does it increase, and does that weigh heavier on you during these months or not at
I'd say I wouldn't say people come in. It's more visible, and um, uh, there's life events that happen within our county and within our service region
all?
that increases the need for services. So warmer weather means um, if
Heat exhaustion.
well if well I was going a completely different route. If people were couch hopping or staying with friends or family,
Yep.
it is way easier to give them the boot in warmer weather than it is deathly
Okay.
cold.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So you see a lot of that. People that were couch hopping, staying from here to there, they will be more visible and uh, access. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say outwardly accessing services. So I don't think people are coming in more. As yeah, sure, there's a population,
Some.
but it's still going to be. It's just people are out and about more. It's Minnesota, so whoever they were um, staying with during the winter months here and there, there's less of a tolerance. It's easier to say, go figure it out. You need to,
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
so,
If you have to. Yeah.
and springtime, and this is my own theory, the housing market is always hot in the springtime. That includes the rental market, though. People are moving, houses are selling, people are moving. Whether it's ownership or rentals, it is the
Mm-hmm.
hottest time of year
Right.
for movement in housing,
Yep.
uh, as well as non renewals of leases and evictions. Um, so, that being said, with people not being renewed, rent increases, evictions, we'll see more happening there.
So it does. I mean, so in a sense, it does uptick. In these months. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what
Oh, it does.
It feels like. In a sense, I hate to put that in a good way, but at least some folks are at least out of weather, whether they're couch hopping and doing what they're doing, but still a tough situation. It's got to be a heavier burden on you know allied services with you know you're helping everybody you can, but when it's kind of heavier in these times, like what do you do to adjust? Is there anything you do? You just always kind of doing whatever you can, treading water type of deal.
Oh, it's treading water. Nope,
Yeah.
we're still, I think my team works long hours and works really, really hard. We're It's an exciting time of year too, though, to be out and about.
Yeah.
My team is so passionate about street outreach and meeting people outside where they're at. It is actually much more enjoyable in the spring.
Yeah.
So, um, really working hard is just it's a passion, and it's happier when the flowers are blooming and the trees are blooming and the sun is shining. So
Yeah. And it doesn't seem so bad out there. I'm sure everyone, I'm sure their spirits are a lot better in this time of year than in the wintertime when it's hard, and they probably feel pretty good about themselves. Like, hey, this isn't so bad. And granted, it's a situation of a lot of time unfortunate circumstances that led them there. But like we've talked about, you, I'd challenge anybody to step in these folks' shoes for one day or one half of a day, and try to live that life, and then see how you would feel. How do you react? How do how's your mental health after that day? If that's all you got, whatever you got. And I don't mean this. I'm not speaking down on the folks out there. I'm just saying that I'm actually uplifting them, that some of these people, and we've seen it in videos and in 360 that go, you've went out there and for those who don't know, the 360 outreach program, available on YouTube. Am I getting that correct, by the way? Your 360 outreach.
I don't know.
Oh, anyways, it's on YouTube. It's on the unfiltered page.
Okay.
But yeah, check it out. But they do outreach program in Dakota County. Go around and talk to some of these folks that are out there, and it's
360. I don't know what you're talking about.
you do.
360 Communities does a whole bunch of
Maybe
stuff.
I'm getting it completely messed up. That could be me. Sorry about that. You, hey, not all of my facts are always correct. Just I'm out here doing what I'm doing. But anyways, go going back to the folks out here, respect to the survival tactics and everything that they, you know, go through mentally, because you don't really know. Which leads me into prevention versus rehabilitation, which we have talked about. It's easier to prevent homelessness before it starts. It's easier. I shouldn't say easy, isn't a good
I
word,
would
but
say not easier, but more
it's a
beneficial.
bad
But
word.
it's not the way it works.
Right? No, exactly. It's so in your mind with your master's degree, psychology, prevention versus rehabilitation. Like I said, it's not easy because, like we've talked about, you never know when these things are coming, whether it's a situation or whether it's a mental illness of some sort, which is a stigmatic word, if that's a word, but mental illness, which is, I think it's just, I like to use mental health, but like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on how these things
Well,
happen and just
I
people in
think
general?
I think that I often do see it coming though. I do see it coming, but action is usually not taken at the right point in time. The signs are there.
Right.
Housing crises don't just pop up out of nowhere. No, 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 no. That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
There are signs, whether there is a mental health issue or a chemical health issue, and leading to behavioral issues that usually contribute to housing crisis or housing loss. Um, but there are signs. It doesn't come up out of nowhere. But where things go wrong is services are not enacted at the right point in time to um, resolve the housing crisis. And
Mm-hmm.
so why is that? Why aren't services enacted during that time? There's many reasons. A lot of times people aren't open to it. I don't have a problem. I don't need help.
Yeah.
Could be a part of it. And then all of a sudden they're like at the last day, oh my gosh, now I do need help. It's too late.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's also services aren't accessible. You're going to call the county line. Press 1 to reach this. Press 2 to
Yeah.
reach this. Okay. And
Yeah.
then, so if you do get a human, then, okay, we will put you on a list. Or, oh, we need all this information.
Right.
And then they will need like documentation um, of your situation. So they're probably going to need income documentation, bank account, because they need to see that if it's a financial thing, you can't resolve the situation on your own. To have documentation of a mental health issue, chemical health issue, money issue. They need documentation. So there's always systems.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then you're like, oh my God, now I need to do all this. There's follow through. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
in a crisis state of mind, what's your follow through going to look like? it's not always great because you're jumbled and you're trying to survive. So coming up with the documentation necessary to receive the help that you need isn't always easy. So, I mean, ideally you'd have someone walking alongside you before it happens, but that's just not always the way it works.
Yeah. I've I've I know I've dealt with that before when I in a previous company that I worked for, I was we had a helpline that you could call. If you were going through anything, call this line. And at the time I was going through something and I actually called the line. I wanted to talk to whoever the hell was on the other end of that line. I didn't know who it was gonna be, but I wanted to talk, needed to talk to him at the time. And I got that exact. Well, sorry, this person has actually changed. There's nobody there, nobody there, And I was at the time, it was just like it was like a, another slap in the face of like, okay,
Yeah,
now what? And so I get that, and we've talked about certain hotlines that you call when you're at your last resort, and you know
yeah.
what you get a voicemail like I don't know, or like
Press
a
one,
recording, like
press two.
yeah,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
really,
Let call.
really,
Okay. I'm going to
they
have
need
you
you.
call this number. I'm going to transfer you.
What they need to do, and maybe we should figure out a way to do this, is they need to learn how to connect that line to people who are willing to pick up the phone. Folks out there that are just, hey, if somebody's out there and they're ready to do it, I mean, I think everybody kind of gets what we're talking about. I'll pick up the phone. Like, what's going on? It might be the worst day of my, like I don't know. It's just an idea. That's a good idea, right? I think there's
That's
a
a good
lot of
idea.
people that would pick up the phone. You know?
I think there is. You're reminding me of something I heard about a while back. I can't think of the name of it. That's not in regard to a housing crisis line, but like
No, it's not. It's not at all.
uh,
But
uh,
we're talking. I mean,
mhm,
we're talking mental health abroad, and we're not just talking. In this, like, we're still an advocate for everybody else who's out there. You know,
mhm.
struggling with whatever they're going through.
Which reminds me of Tuesday. I don't know what's on your to-do list, but I want to do this might be
Lots.
an appropriate time to just throw in there about my tidbit about veteran homelessness because we are talking about our service workers. You're
Yes.
like, what, Amber? We could do a whole segment on it, but um, when we talk about veteran homelessness too, um, I mean, the quickest version I can say is I literally, it's about 1 out of 100 people I see. Everybody's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What? No, it's not very many. In my
That's a
region anyway.
that's a good that's a good. I mean,
No, it is a
for our
good thing,
veterans.
and I think there's a couple of reasons. Minnesota actually did a really good job starting quite a few years ago of resolving veteran homelessness. There was huge efforts, huge funding, huge service efforts to work on veteran homelessness, and I think it was very, very successful. So that's a huge part of it. And the like 1 out of 100 that I do see is there's a lot of folks. The behaviors are still going to contribute to homelessness, and or they do not want to be associated with their veteran status often. So
Why?
when
Why
I
is that?
when I meet a
Because they're homeless.
no, no, when I meet a person, it's traumatizing, and they do
Oh
not
yeah, they
want
don't
to
want to
be.
talk about it. They don't want it. Yeah.
No, they don't want to be re-traumatized because when you start saying, because it is a question we literally ask every person we meet in conversation at some point. We need to check the box if you're a veteran or not, because if you are, you get like a vast amount of services that are available to you.
Right.
Um,
Well, and
so
that's not just you asking them. That's in everything you do anywhere. are you a veteran? Yes or no? You know what I
Yep,
mean? So it's
all the time.
okay.
So, and it's not always in the first conversation because it really depends. But we have met a lot of veterans that will not acknowledge their veteran status at first. And then later on down the line, we'll be questioning a story and be like, you told me you weren't a veteran, but you served. What? Um, so there's just, I think a lot of it is, that's a whole different conversation about trauma and
Yeah.
re-traumatizing and talking about it and
Right.
that experience. Um, so I just wanted to throw that out there when we're talking about our service workers. It's like
Hmm.
top priority still within the state of Minnesota and Dakota County to connect our veterans. But still navigating it. Of course, I'm an outreach worker. I got my complaints about navigating the systems because there's a lot of veteran outreach, like resources that never step foot on the ground. What?
Yeah.
So you're a veteran outreach worker, but you never leave your office or cubicle. That's seriously the way it is sometimes. I don't know. But that's my little tidbit I want to throw in on today's segment on service workers.
Yeah.
Um,
Very good. Yeah, I mean, like you said, salute to our service, all of our members. Our father is a veteran. Many of our family members have served.
friends, yep.
Yes, so whether it's in the police department, you obviously you have sure close friends who are police officers. You have the it's the what the every 4th of July. Can I say
Oh,
this? Can I say this? Is that okay?
well, I have the I usually have a gathering, but
Of officers that come to your place.
oh,
That's all we need to say about that. But yeah, so you're very welcoming, and you know me when I'm over there and like there's like 8 or 10 cops. I'm always like, just naturally, I'm like, hey guys.
but
But
notably, it's nobody from Dakota County.
no,
Or
no, no, it's not Dakota County. No, it's a whole nother.
notably, no, no.
Yes, not Dakota County. No, 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 no.
My my
Although
Dakota, sorry, Dakota County colleagues.
they're like, what the? You have who out? They're gonna be beefing. They're gonna be trying
That's
to.
why I
They're
was
gonna
like,
be.
oh no, oh,
Oh, now we're gonna have Dakota County. That's all right.
I
Hey, we got.
know, oh no,
That's all right.
sorry,
We love
sorry,
you both, all the counties.
all the
You know,
counties.
appreciate you guys and what you do and your service and keeping the streets safe. And shout out to Washington County. They keep that Highway 95 stretch all the way up to St. Croix Falls. They keep that pretty safe on a weekend. I saw a lot of
What
police.
did you do?
No, no, I didn't do anything. I was just driving and I saw a bunch of them. I'm like, so like I said, I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just a natural instinct. There's a cop.
No, it
I
is.
don't
No, seriously. I still do it. Oh my God.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not doing anything wrong with like,
am I speeding? Yeah, I know. I still do.
eh,
Uh,
what do you do? But we appreciate it. It's a tough job. I mean, gotten a lot of scrutiny over the past few years, especially in
yeah.
our area, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And it's if you watch, there's actually a documentary. Have you seen the Fall of Minneapolis? Everybody, you
Mm-mm.
check that out. Check out the
Mm-mm.
Fall of Minneapolis documentary. I highly suggest it. It's vivid. Don't watch it with your children. Um, but it shows the whole situation of the riots and everything. So I want to give a shout out to that. And,
So, kind of related, Sai, I wanted to just mention a short story about when I approached the police departments to try to partner with them many years ago.
mhm.
Um, and I wasn't very accepted because I went to almost every department in Dakota County, every city, and like, hey, I'm Amber with that, LA Homeless Street Outreach. I think it'd be really great if we partnered. Do you want to hear about my plan? And only a few cities took my meeting and heard me out. And what I loved was the few ones that did. Oh my gosh, here's the cool thing is most police are unfiltered, by the way. Unfiltered.
Yeah.
They just tell it as it is.
All right. We've done a
Um,
lot of we've done a lot of saluting, so it's okay to be like, yeah. Some of these guys can be kind of cocky.
there's cocky too, but I'm just saying unfiltered is just like
Just a little bit.
they straight up said they've had bad experiences with
That's true.
social service agencies. Oh, they mean well, and then when they call for help, they're never there. And I was like, I totally freaking get you because
Yeah.
I've been in the field long enough. Oh, I can't talk to you because of HIPAA. And so I we respect privacy and we respect HIPAA, but you want to call me about a homeless person, um, I'm going to respond, and we're going to be like, no, is that so and so? I'm going to be there. Oh, have you seen? And I'm going to call you up and say, have you seen that person? And you're going to tell me. I don't. We're not violating privacy by saying, have you seen this homeless person? Because I'm trying to help him or her. And if they call me and say, um, are you connected to this person? I'm going to go ahead and probably say yes or no, unless the person designates that I do not acknowledge that at all. But um, so anyway, most police departments were just like, yeah, okay. We've tried this in the past. There's social service agencies just and police don't mix. And I was like, try me, try me.
Try me.
I really did. And
Like,
they're like, will you
so
go on a, yeah.
which police department was the first one to accept you? Which city? Which town? Are we shouting out?
Well, I got to give a shout out to Hastings
Right.
because I think I was more easily accepted in uh, to Hastings. To Hastings, I do think that being a Hastings native helped.
Right. You're like, I played hockey.
Um, Look me up. I ran around yellow light once. No, but I being a Hastings native.
Uh,
What?
you're such a bad. I ran a
Uh,
yellow light once. Troublemaker.
well, no. So you have to actually fill everything out if you want to like go on a ride along. So that brings me to the next police department to take me up on my offer was Apple Valley, but they had a contingency, and they were like, you know, will you go on a ride along? And I'm like, sure. But of course, they wanted me to do like an overnight ride along to really
Yeah.
experience it.
Right.
And I have kids and a family, so I'm like, I gotta figure this out. But of course, I'm going to do it.
Right.
So no matter what, I'm going to do this, and I did it. So number one, that showed how passionate I was, and I will follow through. But the coolest thing, and this is the part of the story I want to stick, is that while we were out, we met a couple homeless folks at the transit station. And so we approached them and got their information. I'm like, let me see if you got any housing stuff. So I can look up in the homeless database on my phone, and I'm like, you have a referral. Oh my gosh, you have a housing referral. So I was able to, make arrangements for that person to connect with the housing resource, um, and do some follow up. So there was that step to a housing resolution in that moment on my first night on that ride along. So they challenged me to a ride along, and then I guess the challenge back was, I'll show you it's effective if we
Right.
partner,
That's awesome.
and it worked.
That's so
So
cool.
in that one night, two people were connected to housing resources and later housed. It's not quick. Um, but then the police department knew what was going on with that person because I was like, oh, right there. And then we were working side by side. And they knew that, okay, this person's going to be in the transit station homeless for a little while longer. If it's a long time, they're going to be like, Amber, what's up? but if they disappear, they know they got into housing. So
Yeah,
right away, it was proven successful.
that's awesome. That's such a cool story. And it's so cool how
Yeah.
things come together like that. And just like when I told you today how I wanted to or do the segment about office, Deputy Klug, and you told me about your partnership with the police program. So it just kind of just so cool when things just come together when you're trying to do the right thing, you know. Good things can happen. You get to witness those miracles like that. Like how cool is that? That you see somebody like, no, you're in a pro, you're gonna get a house,
Yeah.
and that's so cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and it is. And I don't want to do all roses and flowers,
Right,
because
but
just like every culture, um, uh, police are humans too, and there are better um, workers than others, and different philosophies and cultures within that. So we have to just accept it.
yeah,
Number one, okay. I mean, because even in um, our police service world, people make mistakes, and there's not everybody's fantastic. I mean, hello, just not everybody's fantastic,
right.
and we have to
Some,
accept that.
yeah, yeah. I won't say a
I'm
whole lot more
serious.
about. Yeah, no, I know. I won't say. I'm not gonna say a whole lot more about that. We've talked highly about our officers and deputies today, and
Hmm.
maybe some folks shouldn't be officers. I guess that's all I gotta say. Or maybe they should just. I don't know. I don't want to criticize. I don't know. I've never done the job, so I guess I shouldn't say. Represent, Colorado, everywhere we've been, all over the. I've met a lot of good officers. I met a few that are a little testy, but you gotta have a conversation. If you're respectful, let's just respect each other. That's all. You know,
Respect is a huge thing
and
both
that's
ways.
right, and that's what we're talking.
Hmm.
Respect the folk that may not have a home. If he's on his down on his luck, respect that man, woman. Which brings me to actually a question I wanted to get to real quick before I get your closing thoughts here. We're running
I know
we're
we're running over.
that's good though. I want to ask you, men versus women. I just want to know what the kind of ratio is on homeless. Is it more men? Because you kind of said
Seventy
men and
30.
women, 70-30, men
Yeah, that's
more
a
men.
typical more men. And typically females are just more accepted into, um, if they're in a housing crisis type of situation, they're more accepted into, um, uh, other staying with other people till they resolve their crisis. And then another part of the issue is, um, you'll see more women still to this day with children. So women are often more tied to children and family
Mm-hmm,
situations where there are different resources available for women and families than they are for singles.
mm-hmm.
And you just see that more often
Yeah.
where, so the numbers, I still, in my outreach, is still about 70-30 on men versus women.
And could that possibly be tied to, I'm going to throw this out there, like benefits that women with children get versus men without, so, if children?
No, I don't think it's women with children. It's a parent with child. Um,
Okay.
so it's not. Yeah.
Just
I
curious. I'm
mean,
just curious. Just, I got to ask the question and see what the dynamic
in
is,
I guess in the last quite a few years, though, like the the shelters would be the family like shelters would be women and children, um, and that has changed. Fathers and children are now accepted into family shelters. So that's just kind of across the board now. Is still rare compared to women with children, but it is out there. But the numbers, women still end up with children, I think, more.
Yeah.
And resources are, there's different resources for women with children than singles.
It's an unfortunate part of the demographic to be in for men, who end up homeless, but at least the children are, you know, housed in homes for the most part.
Yeah.
So that's well. I think we've done a really great job here today on our, I believe it's our fourth episode of the podcast. We would, again, everyone who has made it to this point, you probably already like, shared, and subscribed, but please do it again. Tell your friends. Um, we appreciate the support. We're trying to raise this awareness and raise stigma towards the homeless and support my sister, Amber, and everything she does. It's tremendous, it's amazing, and I'm just so glad to help in any way that I can. So, with that in closing, what would you like to say?
I would like to close with my salute to our service workers and my Dakota County
Absolutely.
police agencies. Um, every single police department, um, officers with us and officers that are out only with us in spirit, because everything that they have done has made an impact in our community in Dakota County.
Hmm.
So I would like to leave this podcast in thoughts with my police partners and fellow service workers.
We appreciate your
Thank you.
service, and to all of you who have served, past, present, thank you for your service. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We appreciate you watching. And Amber, great job. This has been Unfiltered, an ally for the homeless.